The abandoned one rain pattered against the cracked pavement of New Harbor City, washing away the day's grime but doing little to cleanse the neglect that permeated this forgotten corner of the metropolis. In the shadow of a rusted dumpster, a figure huddled, shivering not from the cold but from hunger. Her name, in a language no human tongue could properly pronounce, translated roughly to Star Song, but she had begun to think of herself as Nyx, a name plucked from graffiti she'd seen that somehow felt right. Nyx wasn't human. The faint, luminescent markings along her arms that she kept carefully hidden beneath tattered sleeves betrayed her alien origin. 6 months had passed since her scout ship had malfunctioned, sending her crashing into Earth's atmosphere. The emergency pod had saved her life but left her stranded on a planet that would dissect her if they discovered what she was. Her people, the Lumerae, were explorers and diplomats, not warriors. First contact protocols were clear: observation only, no interaction until cultural assessment was complete. But the crash had destroyed her communication array, and she had no way to signal for rescue. So she survived. Day by day, night by night, scavenging what she could from the wasteful humans who discarded perfectly functional technology. Her ability to interface directly with electronic systems through touch had kept her alive, letting her access locked food dispensers or temporarily disable security cameras. Tonight, though, even that gift seemed insufficient against the gnawing emptiness in her stomach. Humans had built their city with such abundance yet guarded their excess with surprising ferocity. "Move along," a gruff voice barked, startling her. A security guard shined his flashlight into her hiding place. "Can't have you sleeping here. Management's orders." Nyx pulled her hood lower, keeping her eyes downcast to hide their unusual violet hue. "Sorry," she murmured, her accent still slightly off despite months of practice. She gathered her meager possessions, a backpack containing scavenged electronics parts and a half-assembled communication device she was trying to build. The guard's expression softened slightly. "Look, there's a shelter 3 blocks east. They might still have beds." She nodded, knowing she wouldn't go there. Shelters meant questions, documentation, proximity to others who might notice her differences. As the guard walked away, she slipped in the opposite direction, heading toward the industrial district where abandoned warehouses offered temporary sanctuary. The rain intensified, soaking through her threadbare jacket. A cough rattled through her chest, her body struggling to adapt to Earth's atmosphere and microbes. The Lumerae were adaptable but not invulnerable, and she feared what might happen if she truly fell ill. Distracted by her thoughts, she didn't notice the drone until its scanning beam swept over her. She froze, heart pounding. Government drones had become more common in recent months, officially for urban security. But rumors spoke of a covert program hunting for evidence of extraterrestrial presence after several unusual atmospheric disturbances had been recorded, disturbances like her crash landing. The drone hovered, its analysis protocols likely flagging her unusual body temperature and heart rate. Nyx bolted, ducking into a narrow alley between towering buildings. The drone followed, its mechanical whir growing louder. She reached a chain-link fence, fingers scrambling against the wet metal as she climbed. The drone's alarm activated, a high-pitched wail cutting through the rainfall. Nyx dropped to the other side, landing awkwardly and feeling a sharp pain shoot through her ankle. Still, she pressed on, limping through puddles, searching desperately for somewhere to hide. Ahead, a doorway stood ajar, light spilling into the darkness. Without thinking, she stumbled inside, finding herself in what appeared to be a workshop of some kind. Tools lined the walls and half-finished projects cluttered every surface. In the center, a man stood frozen, staring at her with shock written across his weathered face. "Please," she gasped, hearing the drone approaching outside. "Don't alert them." The man, tall with graying hair tied back in a messy ponytail, his arms covered in old scars and grease stains, glanced from her to the door. Without a word, he crossed the room and slammed it shut, throwing the deadbolt. "Back room," he said tersely, pointing to a doorway behind a large metal cabinet. "Now." Nyx hesitated, weighing her options, but the drone's alarm left little choice. She limped to the indicated room, which turned out to be a small living space. A bed, kitchenette, and a wall of monitors showing security feeds of the surrounding area. The man followed moments later, closing the door behind him. "Sit," he instructed, pointing to a chair. When she didn't move, he sighed. "Look, I'm not going to hurt you, but those government drones aren't scanning for normal human signatures, are they?" Her blood ran cold. "I don't know what you mean." "Sure you don't." He turned to one of the monitors, typing a sequence of commands. On screen, the drone hovered, outside his workshop, scanning methodically. "Name's Theodore Reed. Most people call me Theo, and you're clearly not most people." "I should go," Nick said, backing toward the door. "With that ankle and that drone?" Theo raised an eyebrow. "Unlikely. Outcome." He opened a drawer and pulled out a first aid kit. "Sit. Let me look at that ankle. Then we can decide if you're leaving or not." Against her better judgment, Nix sat, watching warily as Theo knelt to examine her injury. His hands were calloused, but gentle. "Sprain, probably," he muttered. "Nothing broken? You're lucky." He glanced up, catching a glimpse of the luminescent markings peeking from beneath her sleeve. "Very interesting anatomical features you've got there." Nix yanked her sleeve down. "I should really—" "Relax," Theo interrupted, wrapping her ankle, with practiced efficiency. "If I wanted to report you, I would have just let the drone in." He finished the bandage and stood with a slight grunt. "Coffee? Tea? Whatever it is your species drinks." "Water is fine," she replied cautiously. Theo nodded, filling a glass at the sink. "So what crashed in the Henderson Wildlife Preserve 6 months ago wasn't a meteorite after all?" Nix accepted the water but didn't drink. "How did you—" "I used to work for the Aerospace Administration," Theo explained, leaning against the counter. "Before I got fired for asking too many questions about certain atmospheric anomalies, they wanted to keep quiet." He gestured to the wall of monitors. "Now I keep tabs on their activities. Those drones started appearing 3 weeks after whatever it was crashed. They're looking for something. Or someone." "I'm not a threat," Nick said softly. "Didn't think you were. Threats don't usually come limping through back doors looking terrified." Theo crossed his arms. "Are you hungry?" The question caught her off guard. Her stomach answered with an audible growl, and for the first time, something like amusement flickered across Theo's stern features. "I'll take that as a yes." He opened a refrigerator and pulled out leftover containers. "Can't promise it's compatible with your biology, but it's better than starving." While he heated food, Nix observed her surroundings more carefully. The workshop was cluttered but organized, each project labeled meticulously. On one wall hung photos of a younger Theo standing beside rocket prototypes, and beside them, newspaper clippings about government cover-ups and unexplained phenomena. "Why are you helping me?" she finally asked as he set a plate of food before her. Theo was quiet for a long moment. "Because 20 years ago, I saw something in the sky that no one would believe. Because I've spent 2 decades being called crazy for knowing we're not alone." He met her eyes directly. "And because anyone those drones are hunting probably needs help more than harm." Nix carefully tested the food, a pasta dish that her system could metabolize, though the spices were strange on her tongue. "I can't stay," she said between bites, though the warmth of the room and food made her body ache with exhaustion. "Tonight you can," Theo replied, checking the monitors again. "Drones moved on to the next sector. Tomorrow we'll figure out." "What's next?" "We?" Nix questioned. Theo shrugged. "I've got space, you need shelter. And I'm guessing that backpack full of tech parts isn't just for decoration." He nodded toward her bag. "You're trying to build something. Maybe I can help." "Why? Would you?" "Let's just say I've got my own reasons for wanting to stick it to the government." Theo's expression hardened momentarily. "Get some rest. Couch is yours if you want it." That night, as rain continued to fall outside, Nix lay awake on Theo's couch, her mind racing. Trust was a luxury she couldn't afford, yet here she was, sheltered by a human who knew her secret. In the morning she decided she would leave before he changed his mind. But when dawn broke, she found Theo already awake, coffee in hand, examining the half-built communicator she'd been working on. "Your power coupling is backward," he said, without looking up. And you're trying to boost a signal that Earth tech can't generate. He set the device down carefully. But I might have something that could help if you're willing to stick around. Nix hesitated at the threshold of possibility. Why would you help an alien? Theo's gaze met hers, steady and clear. Because sometimes the most human thing we can do is help someone who isn't. Finding purpose. 2 weeks passed in a blur of soldering irons, circuit boards, and cautious conversations. Nix had intended to leave after a day or two, but Theo's workshop offered both safety and resources she couldn't find elsewhere. The government. Drones had increased their patrol patterns across New Harbor City, making the streets increasingly dangerous for her. Theo proved to be a man of surprising depths. His workshop wasn't just a repair shop as she'd initially thought, but a laboratory where he developed technologies that walked the line between genius and illegal. Signal jammers, drone countermeasures, and communication arrays that bypassed standard monitoring channels filled the cluttered space. You're a criminal, Nix observed one evening as she helped him modify a frequency modulator for her communicator. Theo snorted. I prefer independent researcher. The government just happens to disapprove of my methods. Nix touched a wire instinctively, sensing the electrical current flowing through it. Her species' connection to technology was more than just skill. It was practically symbiotic. This resistor is overheating, she noted, withdrawing her finger before Theo noticed the faint glow emanating from her fingertips. Too late. His eyes had caught the luminescence. You can interface directly with the electronics, can't you? He asked, voice hushed with fascination rather than fear. Nix hesitated before nodding. My people evolved alongside our technology. It's natural for us. That's incredible, Theo breathed, leaning back in his chair. No wonder they're hunting you. A heavy silence fell between them. They both knew who they were, the shadowy government agency that had sent the drones, whose acronym Theo refused to speak aloud because names have power, and these bastards have too much already. Why were you fired from the Aerospace Administration? Nix finally asked, changing the subject. Theo's expression darkened. 23 years ago, I was tracking an unidentified object entering Earth's atmosphere. My supervisor ordered me to classify it as space debris, but the trajectory and speed were all wrong. He rubbed a hand over his stubbled jaw. I kept digging, found records of similar anomalies going back decades. When I brought it up officially, they scrubbed my findings from the system and escorted me out of the building. You lost everything because you saw something unusual? Nix asked. I lost everything because I wouldn't pretend I didn't see it. Theo gestured to the newspaper clippings on his wall. After that, I became obsessed, started connecting with others who'd had similar experiences. Built this place as both workshop and bunker. A faint smile crossed his weathered face. Never imagined I'd actually meet proof I was right all along. Nix looked down at her hands, the markings there pulsing gently with her heartbeat. I'm sorry. Your life was derailed because of my people. Don't be, Theo said firmly. Finding the truth matters, even when it costs you. The next morning, Nix awoke to find Theo already working, eyes bloodshot from lack of sleep. Spread across his workbench were components she recognized from her crashed ship, parts she'd scavenged and carried with her these past months. I think I've figured it out, he said without preamble. Your communicator needs a power source robust, enough to reach deep space but compact enough to be portable. He held up a small device, its core glowing with a blue-white light. This is an experimental energy cell I developed based on theoretical physics papers that got me laughed out of 3 scientific journals. It might just work. Nix approached, cautiously, reaching out to touch the device. The moment her fingers made contact, the energy cell pulsed brighter, responding to her biological signature. This could work, she whispered, hope flooding through her for the first time in months. Their celebration was cut short by an alarm blaring from Theo's security system. On the monitors, 3 black SUVs pulled up outside the workshop, men in tactical gear emerging with equipment that Nix recognized immediately as detection devices. They found us, Theo muttered, already moving. He grabbed a backpack, throwing in tools and the half-assembled communicator. There's a tunnel under the storage room floor. It leads to an abandoned subway line. We need to go. Now. Nix froze, paralyzed by sudden fear. This is my fault. They tracked me here. No time for guilt, Theo snapped, grabbing her arm. Move. They barely made it to the storage room before the sound of the front door being forced open echoed through the workshop. Theo quickly pulled aside a rug, revealing a trapdoor. As they descended into darkness, the sounds of boots and shouted commands filled the space above. The tunnel was narrow and damp, forcing them to crouch as they moved. Theo led the way with a small flashlight, navigating turns with practiced ease. We're prepared for this, Nix observed, her voice barely above a whisper. Always plan an exit strategy, Theo replied grimly. Lesson 1 of dealing with government agencies that don't officially exist. After what felt like hours but was likely only 20 minutes, they emerged into a larger tunnel, the abandoned subway line Theo had mentioned. Old tracks stretched into darkness in both directions. Where does this lead? Nix asked, wincing as her injured ankle protested the extended movement. South exit brings us out near the docks. North takes us toward the mountains. Theo checked. A small compass. Either way, we need to keep moving. Those guys will find the tunnel entrance eventually. As they trudged along the tracks, Theo's earlier confidence began to falter. I'm sorry, he said unexpectedly. I should have been more careful. They must have tracked your energy signature or been monitoring my supply acquisitions. You've risked everything for me, Nix replied. I'm the one who should apologize. Theo stopped abruptly, turning to face her. Why? Because you crashed on a planet and needed help? Because you're different? He shook his head. That's what's wrong with this place. We're so busy being afraid of what's different that we forget to see what matters. And what matters, Nix asked softly. Connection. Understanding. The fact that someone from another star system can crash on this backwater planet and still find something in common with an aging conspiracy theorist. He managed a tired smile. If that's not some kind of cosmic miracle, I don't know what is. They continued in silence after that, eventually reaching a maintenance door that led them out near the harbor. The salty air was a shock after the stale atmosphere of the tunnel. Distant foghorns sounded as cargo ships moved in the pre-dawn light. I know someone with a boat, Theo said, scanning the docks. If we can get offshore, maybe we can finish the communicator without interference. Nix stopped walking, her expression resolute. No, I'm tired of running. This isn't the time for a last stand, Theo argued. Those guys have resources we can't match. I'm not suggesting we fight them, Nix clarified. But we need a place with clear access to the sky, away from the city's electronic interference. The mountains you mentioned, is there somewhere there we could work? Theo considered this. I have a cabin. It's basic, off-grid, not much more than a shelter for when I needed to disappear for a while. Perfect. Nix felt a renewed sense of purpose. We finish the communicator there, I contact my people, then this ends. No more hiding, no more running. The journey to Theo's cabin took most of the day, involving a series of calculated risks. A stolen vehicle, cash-only supplies from a rural store, and back roads that hadn't seen maintenance in years. By nightfall, they arrived at a small, wooden structure nestled among towering pine trees, the city lights a distant glow on the horizon. The cabin was indeed basic, a single room with a wood stove, bed, and small kitchenette. But it had something invaluable, solitude and clear skies. They worked through the night, Nix's fingers glowing as she connected her biological energy to the communicator, enhancing Theo's modified power cell. By dawn, the device hummed with potential. Its antenna array pointed toward a specific sector of the sky. Will they come? Theo asked as Nix initiated the signal. If they receive it, she replied. My ship wasn't the first scout vessel. We've been observing Earth for decades, assessing whether humanity is ready for contact. And what's the verdict? Theo's voice held a hint of bitterness. Nix met his gaze. Mixed. Some, like you, are ready. Others. would dissect you in a government lab, Theo finished grimly. The communicator pulsed, sending Nix's distress call into the cosmos. Now all they could do was wait. 3 days passed with no response. Theo kept watch for pursuit while Nix maintained the signal, occasionally adjusting frequencies. On the 4th night, exhaustion overtook her and she fell asleep beside the communicator, her luminescent markings dimming as her body sought rest. Theo covered her with a blanket, his expression softening as he watched this being from another world who had somehow become important to him. He'd spent his life searching for proof he wasn't alone in his beliefs, but found something more valuable instead, a connection that transcended species. He was stoking the wood stove when the communicator suddenly burst to life, emitting a series of tones that roused Nix instantly. "They heard us," she gasped, her markings glowing brightly with excitement. She pressed her palm against the device, receiving information through direct interface. "A retrieval ship is coming. They'll be here by tomorrow night." Theo should have been elated, but a strange heaviness settled in his chest. "That's great," he managed. "You're going home." Nix looked up, her violet eyes studying him. "Come with me." The words hung between them, impossible and tempting. "I can't," Theo said finally. "Earth may be flawed, but it's my home. There's work to be done here, people who need to know the truth." Dawn broke with the sound of helicopters in the distance. Theo's jerry-rigged perimeter alarms blared warning. They'd been found. "They must have detected the signal," Theo said, already gathering their essential gear. "We need to move higher up the mountain. Stay clear until your people arrive." But as they stepped outside, the scale of the operation became clear. 3 helicopters circled overhead, and the distant rumble of vehicles suggested ground teams, approaching from multiple directions. "We're surrounded," Nix realized with growing dread. Theo's jaw set with determination. "Then we make our stand here. Your people are coming. We just need to hold out until then." The day passed in tense preparation. Theo deployed his countermeasures, signal jammers to disable their communications, smoke canisters to obscure aerial view, and a few less-than-legal defensive devices he'd acquired over the years. As dusk approached, the first government agents breached the tree line. Theo triggered the smoke canisters, creating a disorienting haze. He and Nix retreated to the cabin's roof, the communicator between them, its signal now a continuous beacon. "Whatever happens," Theo said as figures moved through the smoke below, "it was worth it. Meeting you, knowing the truth, it gave me purpose again." Nix's hand found his, her luminescence spreading momentarily to his skin in a gesture of connection. Her people shared only with those they trusted completely. "You gave me more than shelter, Theo. You gave me hope when I had none." The agents converged on the cabin just as the sky above split open with light. Not the helicopter's searchlights, but something else entirely. A craft descended, silent and elegant, its hull shimmering with the same luminescence that marked Nix's skin. The government forces faltered, weapons raised uncertainly at this unexpected development. From the craft, a beam of light engulfed Nix and Theo, lifting them from the roof even as agents stormed the cabin below. Inside the Lumeri ship, Nix found herself surrounded by her people for the first time in months. Their joy at finding her was palpable, their curiosity about the human she'd brought aboard even more so. "This is Theodore Reed," she announced formally. "He saved my life and helped me contact you. He is under my protection and to be treated as an honored guest." The ship's captain, an elder Lumeri with markings that glowed deep blue with wisdom, approached Theo. "Human, you have aided one of our own at great personal risk. The Lumeri do not forget such debts." Theo stood straighter, still processing the reality of being aboard an alien vessel. "I just did what was right." "A simple principle," the captain observed, "yet one we have found surprisingly rare in our observations of your species." "We're complicated," Theo replied with a faint smile, "but some of us are trying to be better." As the ship ascended beyond Earth's atmosphere, Nix joined Theo at a viewing portal. Below them, New Harbor City shrank to a collection of lights. the mountains where they'd made their stand nothing more than a dark smudge. "What will you do now?" Theo asked. "Complete my mission," Nix replied. "Share what I've learned about humanity, both the danger and the potential." "And you?" Theo watched his planet grow smaller, knowing his life would never be the same. "I think I found a new purpose, building bridges where others see only walls." The ship accelerated, stars blurring around them as Nix's people prepared to return to their home system. But for both the stranded alien and the lonely human who had found each other on rain-soaked streets, home had become something more complex and more beautiful than merely a place of origin. It had become wherever they stood together, reaching across the void that separated their worlds, creating connection where once there had been only isolation.